Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of PODcakes. I am so happy you are here to join us today, and I really need to tell you that today's episode is pretty emotional. Today's guest is Angie Ball, and 8.5 years ago, her 19-year-old son committed suicide. We're going to dig into Angie's story of growing up and having children, and ultimately finding out the most horrific news that any parent could ever have. There are times in this podcast where I am speechless, believe it or not. I am trying to decipher my own emotion and my own thoughts as I'm listening to this story. And it was difficult to hear. It was emotional to hear. And Angie is so brave just to come on and share her story like this. What her and I want to hopefully achieve by putting this story out there is if somebody else is going through this situation, as terrible as it is, there's hope to live every day. Yeah, you got to fight every single day, but you can live. I can't even imagine going through this. Friends, if you like what we're doing here on PODcakes and Motorcycles and Pancakes, please consider becoming a Patreon member. It is less than a cup of coffee per month, and you will get early access to all the videos, all the vlogs, all the podcasts, and you even get first shot at all the new releases of all the merchandise. And being a Patreon member, that means that you also get a permanent discount code on all the merch. If you're watching this on the Motorcycles and Pancakes YouTube channel, please go down and make sure to like, subscribe, and share, and leave us a comment, even if it's only one word. Let us know what you think of this episode. If you are currently listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please make sure you do the same thing. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment on what you think of today's episode. Make sure you stick around to the end of this video as I put together a special dedication to Wyatt. Friends, it is my heartfelt appreciation to introduce to you Angie Ball. So just like that, we're live. Angie, thanks for coming today. I really appreciate it. It's probably a bit of a difficult podcast that we're going to have, but I was very thankful when I reached out and was like, hey, you want to maybe tell your story out here? You know, I think it could possibly really help somebody else going through the situation. Suicide is terrible. I can't even fathom what happened and what the feelings are, but here we are and you're surviving it, you know, and I don't think it's anything anybody will ever get over, but it's definitely living day to day, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think in true fashion, let's step back a little bit, right? We don't need to get into everything right now. Just tell us a little bit about you. What's little Angie like? Where'd you grow up? You know, kind of that kind of stuff, and then we'll kind of move on.
I was born and raised in Vancouver. Still live in Vancouver.
Okay.
I live a half mile or a mile from my childhood home. All my family's close by. I ventured out a little bit after high school, but came right back to the Pacific Northwest. So.
Okay.
Definitely where I belong. All my family, all my friends.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's funny. Everybody does the same thing. I did A, B, and C. Okay, now let's go. It's like, wait a minute. There's a whole bunch right there. It's really funny that you said, you know, you grew up or you lived by your childhood home. Mm-hmm. The first house that we bought, I could stand on the roof of that house and look at the house that I grew up in, you know. And in fact, my sister ended up living in that house for a long time, so I'd go to work or whatever, and she was like a night owl, and I'd be going to work at like 2 a.m. or whatever, you know, and she would just be like smoking a cigarette, standing outside the street waving at me. And I'm like, hey, how you doing?
Fancy seeing you here.
Yeah, weird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said you ventured off for a while after high school. Mm-hmm. So in high school, what was that experience for you like? Were you
sports or drama or?
Athlete, gymnastics, cheerleading, track.
Oh, no
Just
kidding.
for the off season to keep in shape. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was pretty much an athlete all of my childhood.
That's pretty rad.
Yeah.
What was your favorite?
Cheer for sure.
Cheer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
Were you guys like at football games throwing each other in the air and doing all that stuff?
100%.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible. I've said this before. When I was coaching at Gladstone High School, we had just normal cheerleaders forever. Mm-hmm. And then one year we had this big coaching staff change. And I remember walking down the sidelines and I catch something out of the corner of my eye and this little girl's going through the air doing some stuff. And I'm like, and I'm on the headphones too. And I'm like, hey guys, when did we start throwing the cheerleaders in the air? Can we get back to the game, Coach Friedel? Yes, I guess we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So were you, what do they call those, flyers or on the ground or?
I was more of a base.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would prefer to throw people rather than be thrown.
Boy, there's so many comments that we can go with that. But we'll just go ahead and keep it not that way. So after high school, you said you ventured out. Mm-hmm. And where did you go to?
Camp Pendleton, California. Yes.
Oh, Marine Corps stuff.
I married a Marine.
Okay.
Yes. It
So-
was very quick.
Okay. Was that high school sweetheart and then just moved down?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He went into the Marine Corps. He was a couple years ahead of me. He went in the Marine Corps, and then once I graduated, we got married, and then I moved down there with him.
Oh, okay.
Was there for about a year and a half, and then came back.
Oh, you were like, I'm done with San Diego?
Done with being married to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah. No, it was rough. There was just a lot of violence, I had a very safe childhood. Mm-hmm. I wasn't prepared for the real world.
Oh, okay.
Always thought the best of everybody and learned real quick that's not necessarily how the world is. So
Yeah.
yeah, I luckily had supportive family that helped get me home and quickly and could put that part behind me.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's fantastic that the family will rally and get you home. So, so once you guys got home, what was life like? You're in another transition at that point.
Yeah, at that point, I mean, I was only 19, so I was still relatively young. And then I met Kevin, who is my boys' biological father. Mm-hmm. And then we weren't actually together very long, and then that's when I got pregnant with Wyatt. I had Wyatt when I was 20.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was pretty quick.
Yeah. We had kids pretty young too. Mm-hmm. It was actually pretty neat. So what was that like? You know, like, hey, we're young, we're gonna have a kid, and
yeah,
trying to prepare for that.
I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was 100% terrified.
Same.
You know, we moved in together and got this little single wide trailer, and you know, I was working and he was working, and we just, you know, did everything we could to make ends meet and take care of the baby. And luckily still good family support. It would have been a completely different experience without that. I only took 6 weeks off of work after I had Wyatt, so I was fortunate to have my mom, who was teaching at the time, so she was home in the summertime, and she would do a lot of childcare for me when I was working. And Wyatt was not a baby that wanted to not nurse.
Oh.
So there were many months in the summertime when she would bring him up to me every 2 hours at work, so I could feed him until we got him on a little bit better of a schedule there. So
That's kind of...
I was fortunate that I had that family support, because it would have been a nightmare to have to deal with like a licensed childcare and all of that with those kinds of issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine. The cost of childcare is ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, you have 2 kids? 2 boys?
I actually have 4 now.
Oh, that's
yeah.
close.
But yeah, I have 4 kids, but Wyatt was the oldest, and then Connor, my second boy. Yeah. And then through that relationship ended, that marriage with the father of the 2 boys. And then he actually passed away. And then I remarried someone that I'd known since I was a kid. And he had a daughter from his first marriage. And then I had the 2 boys. He had full custody of his daughter. Of course, I had custody of the boys. We did a cross adoption. where he adopted the boys and I adopted his daughter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a cross step-parent adoption.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and then we had our youngest.
Okay. So how old is everybody now?
Well, Wyatt would be 27. Connor is almost 25. And then Jessica just turned 24. And then Morgan just turned 18.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
all the tough ages, right?
Yeah.
Just old enough to get out of the house and go do your own thing, but still young enough to be like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, they're all pretty. I mean, Connor just got out of the Army, so
Oh, okay.
he's been in the Army for the last 4.5 years, so his contract is just finishing up. So he's home now. He's working on getting established and what he wants to do. So Jessica's, out on her own and working, and Morgan's working in school and at home still. So everyone's pretty self-sufficient. Everyone's pretty independent, and yeah, I'm actually pretty fortunate.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's pretty rad.
Yeah.
So what was Wyatt like when he was younger?
Wow. Super sensitive.
Yeah.
Very, very sensitive kid. Liked to cuddle. Very energetic, though. Hard to focus on things. I think there were some attention things there. I was probably too young to, and not really educated enough at that point to really understand that maybe there were some mental health issues developing. He experienced some trauma with the death of his biological father and how our relationship looked before he passed. There are some situations where I had to be very protective of Wyatt. And I don't doubt that those things stuck. I'm now, through my education, I'm work in the field of counseling, specifically with youth counseling and substance use disorders. Okay. But I've been doing that work for 20 years. And so over the years and through my education, I've learned a lot more about the effects of childhood trauma and how that sticks, even if there's no memories of it. Those kinds of things will stick and affect kids. So unfortunately, with him being the oldest, he had probably the most memories of some of that.
And that was the kind of just the violence?
Yeah. Just some domestic violence, and there's a lot of substance use there. So I had to be pretty protective as far as allowing him to leave with him at certain times when it wasn't safe to do so. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good solid couple years there of just trying to keep him safe and his little brother safe. So,
man, that would be so difficult,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you do, but I know that there's been such times with my grandbabies and stuff, and it's just like, Justice is a great dad and stuff, but there's been a couple times where I'm like, you're drinking a little too much here, kid.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not drive with the grandbabies. Let's not drive at all.
Right.
Yeah. I think we've all been in there, but sounds pretty tough. So that was younger with him, right?
Yeah. So Wyatt was 5. Actually, no, Wyatt was 8 when his biological dad passed away.
Okay.
So, for the most part, though, I mean, other than those isolated incidences of some not great things and some trauma there, Wyatt had a pretty good childhood. He was in sports at the age of 5, and he was an excellent wrestler and played youth football and did all the things and had good friends and did well in school, and every now and then the little normal stuff that kids go through. But overall, he was great. He had good relationships with my family. Just a lot of support. A lot of real healthy activities that he had access to. And then when me and his adopted dad got together, that was he was just a great father and was a really good example to the boys and just really stepped up and, was right there for him. Just became an instant father and never expected an instant transition, but it really was a natural transition, I think, for the boys. They really latched onto him pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so at that point, we were kind of a outdoors family, a lot of fishing. He was definitely an avid fisherman, hunter, all of that. So we did a lot of fishing, a lot of camping, a lot of hunting, that kind of stuff. Wyatt, all the kids did sports in their childhood, and things were well. When Wyatt was 13, he was a passenger in a car, and he got into a car accident and had a major ankle injury. After multiple surgeries, he ended up having to have a fusion of his ankle, which completely took him out of all sports, everything that he knew at that point. I think that was a big turning point for him at 13, knowing what I know now about human development and seeking identity at that age and everything that youth go through right around that time. That's pretty critical. And he had to completely find out who he was without having that identity of being an athlete and all of his sports friends and all of that. So I think that was pretty rough, and that was kind of a turning point for him.
Yeah. Let's go back again, because we just jumped through some years. So you said he started playing sports at 5? Mm-hmm. What was his first sport?
Wrestling.
He was wrestling. Okay. That's kind of what I thought, but I wasn't sure if football or something.
I mean, it was wrestling and football both kind of about the same time. They were just different seasons.
Oh,
so, yeah. I'm pretty sure he was close to 5 with both of them when he started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wrestling's pretty rad for sure. Mm-hmm. So wrestling, football, and then what did you say, track?
No, he did a few years in middle school.
Okay.
When he first started middle school, he did track a couple times, but wrestling was really what he thrived.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he was good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then was he wrestling year-round? Because I know a lot of those.
No, as a youth, it was more kind of like a community education club.
Okay.
And then in football season, he would do youth football. And then once he got into middle school, that's when the school sports started. Mm-hmm. So then that's when he started just joining the school teams for the sports that he liked.
Okay. So that basically takes us to about 13.
Mm-hmm.
So what, I guess pre-accident, what was the relationships like with all of his, not his friends, but his families, all the siblings and everything?
Good. I mean, him and his brother had their typical, brotherly fights or whatever, but...
What? They don't do that.
Had to break them up every now and then, but it was fine.
Right.
It wasn't anything crazy. When my youngest Morgan was born, he was 9 when she was born, and he took to her instantly. Like, she was his pride and joy. Absolutely. Like, I could not do anything with her as a baby without him right there, wanting to caretake, wanting to hold her, wanting to change her, wanting to just whatever needed to be done. He was such a help as for having, 3 kids and a newborn.
Oh, wow.
He was great. And he had just so much pride and love, for his family.
That sounds like a pretty good kid right there for sure.
Yeah.
So, and then you said after the accident, after all the surgeries and stuff, he was having a hard time finding his identity, right? Mm-hmm. So what progressed after that?
Then I think really where things started to turn is he lost a lot of his friends. All of his friends were athletes, and he wasn't in the sports anymore. So he was kind of in this position to where he was trying to find new friends, trying to figure out who's going to accept me, who's going to want to be my friend, and didn't always find the greatest kids. Like, there was a few friends that he attached to, just I think because he wanted friends, and he was that age of how important friendship is. And they weren't always the best. So we started noticing, more problems at school, some behavioral issues, minor. But then things just kind of progressed. By the time he was 15, he had gotten into some significant trouble at school that resulted in him having legal charges. And honestly, it was nothing that he intended to be harmful, but it was harmful. And he just didn't understand. He didn't think through what he was doing. Yeah. And, he ended up having probation and having to deal with some of that, and he worked through it, and no further issues beyond that. And got back into school and finished his school and graduated with good grades. And that was the only real trouble that he ever got into. But it was significant. It was significant, I think, in affecting how he viewed himself. Like a lot of shame, I think, for some of his choices. And I have to imagine that would stick with somebody.
Oh, it
for
does.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would imagine for him too, going through the high school, watching, wrestling's going on, football's going on, Friday Night Lights, right? All difficult things to go to. Did he go to football games?
Well, he joined percussion.
Oh, that a boy.
Yeah, he was like, well, I guess I just got to find new things. So he self-taught himself guitar when he was home after surgeries. And, his dad played guitar so he could teach him some things. And then he joined percussion in high school. And so he was still there, at the games, just in a different spot.
In a different role.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask about the Get Fiddle. Mm-hmm. You sent me some pictures, it's part of the show prep stuff. And it's sent me 2 or 3 where he has a guitar in his hand.
Yep.
I think it's pretty cool. We'll put one up right here. Mm-hmm. So trust me, it'll be there.
Okay.
It ain't magic. Yeah. So that's was he really getting kind of into it? Did he have any interest in like maybe starting a band or anything? Or was it just like, I just want to play the guitar?
I think it was just something to do. It was something that he could he was so used to having a goal to accomplish something or to do something. I think just kind of being an athlete his whole life. Yeah. That's just kind of how he was wired. And so there was just something that he kind of needed to get good at.
Right.
And so I think he just made it his kind of mission to find something that he enjoyed doing, that he could gain skill level at, and that could have a positive impact on himself. And I think it did.
Oh, that's fantastic. I asked because I think, being somebody that has a little bit of a music background, when you're an athlete, you have a goal set, right? So season's coming up, or you have matches coming up, or whatever, and you have this goal to win. Mm-hmm. And if I saw this thing on this billboard yesterday that said, if you're not mad about losing, you'll never win. I was like, oh, I like that. Anyways, squirrel moment. But a lot of athletes have that goal, right?
Yeah.
Let's go into high school for a second. Just use high school football for a minute. So you come in as a freshman, you've been in youth, and now you're around the varsity guys. Oh my gosh, I want to be that. Mm-hmm. So you always have a goal, and then all of a sudden you're on JV. All of a sudden now you're on varsity. Mm-hmm. I got to be a starter. Now you're a starter, right? So you have this progression of goals. Mm-hmm. But when that's taken away from you, people go into music is a very common thing for, I think, athletes to go into. And it's kind of that same drive, where you're just like, I'm going to do this. And that's why I was kind of wondering if you had aspirations to start a band, because it seems like that's the natural progression. Like, I'm playing the guitar. Yeah, I'm going to, play these notes. Oh, wait, here might be a song or something. I need a drummer. I need a bass player,
I think he did. He tried to do it all himself. And he did have a competitive nature to him, for sure. He had a competitive nature to him. So, I think, he started with the guitar, and then he joined percussion. I remember one summer, they send the band equipment home. So we had a drum set in our house all summer long, which was fantastic.
Yeah, I can only, see, as the drummer, now that I'm older and have kids, I'm like, oh, Dad, I am so sorry.
Yeah.
I am so sorry about the drum and stuff growing up. Mm-hmm. I can only imagine what he was doing, shaking his head. It was actually kind of funny because when I was playing in one of my very, 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 very first bands, we were jamming in my bedroom, and it was this guitar player, and he had this Mesa Boogie cabinet. It was 412s in it, and had this 150-watt head on it. And at the time, he would put it a foot away from me. So I developed this really loud playing style because I couldn't hear myself. Mm-hmm. So I got to hit harder, And my dad at the time was dating this girl, Margaret. She was
You say that with such affection.
Oh my God. She was just a piece of work. I don't know. Anyways, I remember we were just hanging out one day, and she comes home. And we're like, we didn't want her there. You know, she came home early and it was like summer vacation or something. We're like, we know how to get her out of here. So we just started jamming. And sure as shit, it was like 2 minutes later, poof, she was gone. We're like, mission accomplished.
That
you guys
worked.
want to shoot hoops? Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. That ended well. So anyways, I don't, like, we have this whole topic to go through and I'm just like, oh, here we go, right? Mm-hmm. So when did things start kind of turning for him?
Well, definitely around the age of 15 when he started kind of getting involved with kids that were not the greatest, making some choices that were not the smartest. Throughout all of that, you know, I had him in counseling. Again, my work is in youth counseling, so I had a ton of resources at my fingertips, utilized everyone I had. Had several evaluations. No diagnosis was ever found with him. So, looking back now, yeah, I mean, there were so many healthy things in his life, so many protective factors in his life with his family situation, the activities that he was involved in, stability. I almost think sometimes the protective factors that he had in his life threw some clinicians off, and maybe they didn't quite see what was really there or spend enough time to figure out what was really there. Looking back now, I definitely think that there was some bipolar going on, developing at that age. It did run in his biological side of the family. So, you know, knowing what I know now, I think I probably would have approached it a lot differently, with more specific concerns that I was seeing. Mm-hmm. But I think at the time, and also with him being my oldest, was this normal teenage stuff? Is this something to be highly concerned about? Everything seems to be going mostly well, but I did have some concerns. So I just kind of put it in the hands of professionals to try to sort that out, and no diagnosis was ever found. And it was kind of chalked up to making some poor decisions, and he learned his lesson and was on track to get back and do what he's supposed to be doing. So that's kind of the direction that we went. Just continued to support and all of that. Things really did turn around positively after that legal incident. There was really no issues. I mean, absolutely none. He was pretty straight and narrow, you know, did what he was supposed to do. That really threw a wrench in things for him. And I do believe that he learned his lesson from that. But there were some things, I think, internally that happened through all of that kind of changed his trajectory. And, you know, he never talked about difficulties. He never talked about emotional struggles ever. Just continued on and did well and had the biggest smile for everybody and would give the shirt off his back for anybody. And he was probably really struggling.
I think definitely. Yeah, I think as far as for me, I know about that same age, you know, that's when a lot of stuff in me was starting to kind of have some rumbles and stuff. And I think, I can't speak for him, but I think for me, I found it embarrassing. You know, I found it embarrassing to have those thoughts, you know, and just on the outside, I was just, hey, everybody, how you doing? You know, and just being goofy.
Class clown. It's a great distraction to not let people see what's really going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I mastered it back then too, for sure. I actually, well into my adult life, you know, it's easy to mask that stuff. And it's just, we got to be able to talk about it, you know.
Yeah.
And how do we get the kids, you know, because I heard on another podcast, there's no more dangerous animal than a group of kids, than a group of young pubescent boys. Because when we're that age, we're ruthless, you know, and that's not a group where you could be like, hey man, I'm kind of depressed. those groups are just going to pick at that and be like,
Yeah.
they're going to use it against you.
Yeah.
For sure. So I can imagine, it was not the right term. I can relate. I think when you start talking about that age and where he was going through, you know. So, well, moving forward with him, he was just kind of playing, hey, everything's fine card.
I believe that now, looking back. I didn't see it then. I truly believed he was doing well.
Yeah.
Then I just didn't. I was also very focused on my career at the time. I had a lot going on with the development of my career. Was working some long days. So there's always that guilt of like, what was there that I missed? What didn't I see when I was focused on, working 14-hour days? Yeah. So.
Those shoulda, woulda, couldas are horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when things were kind of getting close to him doing this, was there like a sudden change?
Well, after high school, about 6 months after he graduated, he moved out and with some friends into an apartment, doing the kind of kid thing. He was working. He had, random jobs here or there, a variety of different things going on, toyed with school, wanted to take a class at college, but maybe not, would take a class and then not. So he kind of bounced around a little bit. I think when he moved out with his friends, there was a lot more that was happening there than I knew. There was, he would have some pretty significant conflict with his dad, just around as he was kind of growing up and changing, as the teenage boys get older, there's just kind of a natural conflict going on there. So I think there was some times when he wasn't coming around, which was hard for me, to try to find that balance of like, I know my husband's frustrated with him. I miss my boy, how do I get, help work through this? But he ended up moving back home. It kind of seemed like things were just kind of crashing for him when he was out there on his own with his friends. Just not getting into trouble really, at least that I knew of. It was breakups. It was like had stuff stolen. It was just all of this yucky stuff of the world just kind of like happening to him. And I have no doubt that I'm sure he was making choices that were putting him in some of those scenarios. But things were not working out. And I, one time was spending some time with him and I'm just like, this doesn't seem to be going too well. And you always have a place here. If you decide you want to come back and just have a break from all of this crap,
yeah,
your bedroom's here. It's how you left it. And you're welcome to be here anytime you want. And he did end up moving back in. So he was really only out living with friends for maybe about 6 months, I think. But I think a lot happened in that 6 months, and I don't think I'll ever really know everything that he went through during that time. But he did move back in. He decided that he wanted to be a mechanic, so he enrolled at Biotech in Wyoming. Mm-hmm. And so he was home for about 3 months before he was set to move over to Wyoming and start that journey. So we were all excited. We had going away parties for him, and he was on a great track. He was happy. Everyone was happy for him. Him and I loaded up his car and took a road trip out to Wyoming. And that was the last time I saw him alive.
So, okay. Going back to these going away parties, mm-hmm. What is like the first happy memory of those going away parties of him that pops in your mind?
Are you familiar with the game Pie in Your Face?
No, but I think I can figure it out.
It's like this plastic hand that you put whipped cream on, and you spin this thing, and it randomly will you don't know when it's going to throw this hand of whipped cream up in your face. And that went on for hours.
Okay.
He was 18 years old. Him and all of his friends playing pie in the face.
Yeah.
Just listening to music. Just a lot of time with friends and family and just a lot of laughs. He was always good for laughs.
Laughs are always good. So when he went away, what was that like? Was it a lot of conversations back and forth with you guys, or did he kind of go inward and just kind of disappear a little bit?
No, him and I talked a lot about, what he wanted to do and how to go about doing it and how to get enrolled and, how to figure out the tuition. And, him and I worked pretty closely on that whole process. And then, the plans to get him moved over there and things like that. So he was present. He was, I noticed some odd sleeping patterns at first when he first moved back in. And I think I kind of chalked that up to like, he's probably used to staying up all night with his buddies playing video games,
Right.
Looking back now, I think those are all signs of mental health issues. I didn't recognize it with my own son at that point.
I think it's hard to look at our kids like that too, where it's just like, oh, you're fine.
Well, and you believe everything they tell you. So when you're like, hey, I noticed you're sleeping in really late today. Is everything good? Oh, yeah, I'm great. I'm just really tired. And I was up late playing video games or, there was always an answer. There was always an explanation. And it always ended with, I'm good, Mom. I promise. I love you. I'm fine. I'll promise. If I'm not fine, I'll tell you. I can't tell you how many times I heard that from him.
Oh, man. It's that. But are you?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So then moving into the, dorms or something over there?
Yep.
In Wyoming. Is that in Cheyenne?
Laramie.
Oh, Laramie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Close to Cheyenne.
Yeah, that town. Spent some cold nights trucking in there.
Yes.
Yes. Remember a couple times road being closed and being bunked down there. Oh, yeah, it's a hoot.
Yeah.
It's a great town. Yay. Go Cowboys. So he didn't really have any friends over there. He just kind of went by himself.
Yeah, he went by himself. I rode over with him. We loaded up his car. We've got close friends that live in the Boise area, so we stayed a couple days with them, and then I actually rented a car from the Boise area, and because he was going to keep his car over there.
Oh, yeah.
So then I just rented a car to travel with him to get him settled in there. I spent a couple days there kind of getting him settled into his dorm. He made friends right away with his roommates. Great people, great group of people. But yeah, I stayed there, I think 2 nights just to kind of help get him all settled. Once he was actually in his room, then I just stayed in a hotel by myself to make sure he was all settled and everything. Interesting story. So it was going to be the last night that I was going to take off in the morning, and he was good. And I was like, oh, we need to get quarters because you need quarters for laundry. So I need to go get a roll of quarters still. So I got a roll of quarters. We had dinner, got him all back to his dorm and settled. And I was in my hotel room and laying there just contemplating leaving him there. I was just overwhelmed with feeling like I feel like this is the last time I'm going to see him. I just couldn't shake the feeling. And I told him at dinner, I'm like, I don't know what this feeling is, but I don't like it. And I just need you to be safe.
Yeah.
I need you to wear your seatbelt. I need you to make good choices because I just don't know. I can't explain this feeling. And he's like, Mom, it's because you're leaving and I'm here and I'm your first. I'm going to be fine. I promise you. I'll tell you if anything's wrong. And I said, okay, I'm going to hold you to that. So then I was back in the hotel room, and after all of that, I forgot to give him the roll of quarters. So I messaged him that night, and I'm like, hey, I forgot to leave the quarters for you. I asked him what time his class starts in the morning. Thank you. He told me, and I'm like, all right, I don't want to bug you on your first day. I'm going to get there about 30 minutes earlier than that, and I'll just put them on your car, and you just know that they're there. And he's like, okay, no big deal. So I got up early that next morning, and I went back over to the campus and found where he parked and pulled up, and sure enough, he's standing right there in his uniform. ready to go to school, just standing there waiting for me. And I'm like, what? It's too early. Like, why are you out here? He was like, I kind of had a feeling that, like, this had nothing to do with the quarters. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, might it be a possibility that you just really wanted to see me one more time? And I'm like, first day of school pic? So I took a picture. I sent you that picture of him standing there by the car in his uniform.
Yeah.
Gave him his quarters and had a great, amazing hug and told him how much I loved him. And he told me how much he loved me and how appreciative he was for all the support to get there and how he was excited to see where this life takes him. And he wants to make everybody proud. And he had big dreams, big dreams. And I went home and cried the entire 10 hours.
Yeah.
Back to Boise area. And yeah. And then after that, I mean, throughout the course of the time that he was there, I would talk to him every other day at least on the phone. There was one time when he lost his phone. He was out four-wheeling with friends and broke it or something like that. So there were some moments of panic when I couldn't get a hold of him. And
I bet, yeah.
At one point, I ended up calling the school because it had been like 4 days and I hadn't heard from him. So I ended up calling the school and just asking for someone to like get some kind of message to him to please call me and just check in. And then he did. He called me like that day from the school. He's like, I'm fine. I broke my phone. I'm like, okay, well, there's an AT&T store over there. I gave him the code to like go get another phone and get it replaced and get all that taken care of so he wasn't without communication.
Right. Email me, kid.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did. He got all that figured out. My husband at the time was not too fond of the idea, I think, that I called the school and maybe felt like I was being a little overly. At that point, he'd turned 19 when he was over there. So little helicoptery maybe, and I'll own that 100%. But also, I couldn't shake that feeling. So.
Well, 4 days. If you go every other day or something.
Yeah.
That's a good time to call.
Yeah.
I would second that for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it sounded like he was having fun going up wheeling and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Wyoming has great cell service everywhere across that state there. It's just amazing. Yeah. I think you get outside of, 2 feet away from a cell tower out there, you lose service.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the last time you saw him. Mm-hmm. And then how long?
He was there for a total of 6 weeks before he died, before he completed suicide.
So he was probably already thinking, had maybe a plan in place, maybe.
I believe that to be true. I believe that this was an attempt to create distance. Mm-hmm. So that it wouldn't be a situation of anybody in his family finding him. He did love his family. And I don't believe that he wanted to hurt. His goal was not to hurt his family. Mm-hmm. His goal was to end his own pain.
I think that's pretty typical because when I was going through my shit, I became just the opposite, I think. I became the worst husband, not a good dad, not a good friend, Again, the outside, you're like, hey, what's up, everybody? But the inside, you're systematically pushing people away on purpose, because my whole thing was, be better off without me. Piss everybody off enough to where they're like, oh, thank God, right? Such a terrible time. So I guess the next pressing question would be, how did you find out?
Well, this was pretty terrible. He died on May 16th of 2016. And that day, I had a few things that I was doing. I was just having some really bad anxiety that day. I just couldn't quite shake it. He had his location on, and I would be lying if I said there weren't times when I would just pull it up sometimes just to make sure that there's some kind of movement and everything's okay. And that particular day, I was at work. It was a Monday. I could not shake this anxiety, couldn't get him out of my head. Thought about just calling him, but he should have been at school during that time. Kept thinking about, no, I just got accused of being helicopter mom. Like, right. I should just trust everything's fine. He said if it's not fine, he'll let me know. But I would pull up that location. I saw, travel down into Colorado, which I thought was odd, but he's 19 years old. I need to just trust that everything's fine. Kind of went on with my day, still anxious all day. Morgan had a little track event after school that day that I went to, just still kind of couldn't shake it. That night I had plans with a friend of mine. Her and I were going to go do a paint night for the first time. Had never done one before and thought, why not? It'd be good. Right. I went and did that night. Everything, I was still just couldn't shake the anxiety, but no word from anybody that anything was wrong. That next morning, my husband and I, we would both leave work similar times, and we would both go to Black Rock on the way to work. Well, that particular morning, I can't remember if he was a little delayed leaving or if I was a little early leaving. Anyway, I ended up pulling in right behind him at Black Rock, and pulled up right behind him, jumped out, ran, gave him a quick kiss, and got back in my car and wait my turn. And I get a text message notification. And he had started seeing a girl over there. They had been dating for a couple of weeks. And I opened up my text message and it was her. And she said, "Did anyone let you know that Wyatt killed himself last night?"
Oh my God, that was it?
That was it. That was it. And I just looked at it. And this is where I don't have a whole lot of memory. Everything, I've got big black holes in my memory right around this time. But I do remember just getting out of my car and walking up to my husband, who was right in front of me, thankfully. Handed him my phone and just looked at him. And I was just in shock. And he's like, "Pull over there." And so we pulled over around into the parking lot area. And I'm just sitting there like in disbelief, like, what's going on? What do I do? Who do I call? He got out of his truck and got on his phone. And I was watching him. And he was calling the police department in Laramie and saying, "Hey, we got some disturbing information. We don't know if it's true about our son. I need to talk to somebody to verify this." And that's I didn't hear what they had said, but later found out that they said, "One moment, we'll transfer you to the coroner." Oh. And I just saw my husband throw his phone across the parking lot. And that's when I knew that it was accurate. It was true. And I just broke down, and I don't remember anything from that point. Apparently I had gotten a hold of work to let them know I wouldn't be in. Apparently I had driven home. Apparently I had called kids' school to have them release them, have Connor drive all the kids home from school. But I don't remember any of that. I just remember getting home and sitting there and just staring and just in disbelief. We were never notified by law enforcement. Later on, through communications, apparently Laramie Police Department notified City of Vancouver Police Department, and they were supposed to personally notify us, and I guess it just slipped through the cracks. as not high priority, I suppose. So that resulted in me learning about the death of my son through a text message.
And a horrible way to say it, too.
Yeah. Yep. Not a phone call, not a, can you call me? Nothing. It was ridiculous.
To me, it feels very nonchalant.
Yeah.
Like, oh, by the way, you might want to know this, I guess, right?
It's horrific. Yeah.
So, a lot of black holes in that day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said Connor went and got the kids
Mm-hmm.
and brought them home.
Mm-hmm.
Did the kids know until, like, did Connor, I guess, he didn't know. He was just like, go get the kids and come home.
Yeah. Their dad just basically said, I need you all to just come home right away. We need to talk. And so they didn't know what was going on. They just knew to get home. And then when they were all home is when we sat down and their dad told them.
Man, I can't even imagine. So was it, you said he went into Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where he did this?
No. I later found out after, because we had to travel back over there to Laramie to bring home everything. In his car was a receipt from Sportsman's Warehouse for ammunition. So he had gone to buy ammunition for the weapon that he used.
Very planned then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You okay?
I'm okay.
Okay. If you need a break, just let me know and we can stop for a while. Whatever you need. So how long from finding out? Well, I guess then you had to like let family know.
Yeah.
And everything.
My husband at the time did all of that. He went over and talked to my parents in person, talked to his parents in person, made personal phone calls to people. I don't believe I did any of that. I don't recall having any direct conversations with anyone. Again, I mean, honestly, I have black holes for about a year.
Yeah.
That a little, like probably a few months before that to like a whole year after that, a whole part of my life is really, really foggy. But yeah, no, he did. He was incredibly strong. Took all that on as the father and did all the notifications.
I tell you, that has to be a pretty stellar man because I'm thinking about the initial reaction of people.
Yeah.
Is horrific.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that he's going, you know, his parents, your parents, telling other people, being on the phone, and man, time and time and time again.
Yeah. Connor, he actually went to tell his biological grandfather, his biological dad's dad, because they maintained a relationship with him. He actually, at 16, wanted to personally drive over there and have that conversation with his grandpa about it. I do remember begging him not to drive. I remember that very well. But ultimately, it was something that he needed to do, that he wanted to do. And then after that, I just remember I was just laying in Wyatt's bed, which I think was for about 2 days, I think. That's the time period's kind of fuzzy, but I remember laying in Wyatt's bed, not moving, not doing anything. And then there was one really impactful moment that I wouldn't say like pulled me out of it. It definitely slapped me hard across the face and lit a little bit of fire for me to get my shit together. I was laying in Wyatt's bed. I don't know how long I had been there, but Connor came in and he said, "Mom, can I talk to you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And he goes, "What pisses me off and why I'm so angry about this besides the obvious, is that when he took his life, he took yours. And now I don't have a mom. He took my mom. And that wasn't fair. And it was a huge slap across the face. And it was a needed slap across the face because, I mean, over the years, people have a hard time knowing what to say to somebody who's grieving. Understandably so. Like, nobody wants to be in that position. And everybody means well, when they're saying whatever they feel like they can say that's supportive of somebody who's grieving. But, I've heard the things like, well, at least you have 3 other kids. At least I do. I'm also missing one. Like, it doesn't negate it, the pain that you feel from losing one. But what that comment did for me was it made me sit up and go, the hell he did. He's not taking me away from my other kids. My other kids didn't make this decision. He made this decision. He doesn't have that right. And there was a little bit of anger. There was a little bit of fire. There's a little bit of determination. There was whatever strength I could muster up. And I'm pretty sure that was the first time that I got up, showered, put some clothes on, and probably ate. Who knows how many days had gone by. But that was a huge step in me saying to myself right then and there, this is not going to destroy my family. I mean, it's destroying our family. And our family had many, many negative things happen, through this event. But I'm going to hold it together with every ounce of strength that I can. And I'm going to be a mom. That's the most important job I've ever had. I'm not giving that up, and he doesn't have the right to take that from me.
I think that is an extremely brave young man to come in and say that.
Very.
Yeah. I think it'd be easy I don't want to ruffle mom's feathers. She's already had enough, But, yeah, I think that is a very strong and powerful moment.
Yeah.
And just like you said, that was a game changer for you.
And it's stuck over the years. Those, those moments when it all comes back and floods you and makes you want to just crawl back in bed and not deal with anything. It's the first thing I think about every time I feel that way. And I don't do it. I get up and I keep going because my family depends on that.
Yeah. So that was about 2 days.
I think so.
Post. Mm-hmm. And then how was the rest of the family?
Morgan she was 10, and Wyatt was her hero. Like, he was always so protective of her. I mean, he really was like a father to her. She was devastated, absolutely devastated. All the kids were. Like, everyone was, Jessica, she withdrew, just kept to herself. They all dealt with it in their own way. Morgan just wanted to be held and cried and cuddled and wanted to lay with me in Wyatt's room and, all of the things, wanted to wear his clothes. Connor was angry. And then went right into take care of business, what needs to be done mode. So they all reacted so incredibly different. Yeah.
So Connor, he went into take care of business mode, but there had to be a grieving process for him.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had his came out in anger. He was an athlete also, wrestling and football in high school at that point, varsity and all that. And there was some fights at school. There was some, conflicts with some teachers. All perfectly appropriate for what was going on and what he was experiencing. But he had such great support from coaches, friends, It's just for him, it showed up as anger.
Yeah. So, how many days after did you guys realize you had to go over and kind of clean his stuff up?
It must have been right after that. I would say it was probably day 3 or 4.
Oh, wow.
That we borrowed my dad's. He has a big enclosed car trailer, and so we borrowed that truck and went on up to Laramie. We had to bring his car home and all of his stuff. Yeah, so we, clean out his dorm. I have very little memory of that. Very little memory.
I guess I maybe asked you the question, but then I think before you guys left, was it just kind of everybody coming over? Or was people giving you space, or was it like...
I remember a lot of meals showing up.
Yeah.
I don't remember who brought them. We had a lot of friends and family and support. I do remember that. I remember things just getting done in the house, and I'm sure that was family and friends just coming in and taking care of things. But I don't have any memory of how it happened or who did it or how this meal just appeared cooked at our table. But that's kind of the beauty of that support, right? Is that your people are there when you need them and you don't realize you need them. And they just show up and then they leave. There's no expectation for entertain me while I'm here or thank me for all of this. It's just, this meal is made for you. It's on the table. I'll check in a couple days, like kind of a thing.
Right. There's probably some sort of a list and a rotation going on. It's
probably
my experience with things like that.
Mm-hmm. I remember lots of flowers showing up. Started getting cards in the mail. Things like that.
Mm-hmm. So you got everything packed up,
mm-hmm.
brought it back. That had to be tough.
It was. I remember looking for anything. I remember, we had to get his cell phone back. It had been taken by the police, and we had to get that back. And, I'm looking for any sign of anything that could tell me why. And part of me didn't even believe that he had died by suicide. Part of me believed that he was murdered. This can't be not that makes a difference. I mean, he's gone either way, but for some reason I just couldn't accept that this was his choice.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't make any sense to me. There was no note. There was no... The only evidence that I saw is he had borrowed a shop jacket from someone in his school, and it was folded on his bed with a note saying who this belongs to. And then there was a bunch of packages, unopened packages that had come in the mail for him after he had passed. He had ordered a bunch of things, video games, spent a lot of money. There was a lot of spending happening right there at the end. So knowing what I know now and having gone through many, many hours of suicide risk assessment and training and all of that, I see that now. I see what those signs were. So that was interesting. I found myself looking to see what CD was in a CD player when he did this. I don't know why. I don't what does that matter? I was just grasping for any way to understand what was going through his head. I don't understand.
Did you have any want to visit where he did this?
So I still to this day do not have any information as to exactly where it happened. I know the means in which it happened, but not necessarily the how. I think his dad has more information on that that he probably chose not to share with me. Well, I know that's true because I started having reoccurring nightmares of the death actually taking place. And I would wake up every night and it was the same. I had the same dream every night of him dying and how he died. And when I described it, it was accurate with what his dad knew. So I didn't have to know. I didn't have to see the reports. So I knew.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it was pretty accurate. I have thought about trying to get more information, reaching out, trying to get some records, going there to where it happened, putting up some kind of memorial. I've been through Wyoming a few times. It's hard. Yeah, it's really hard to drive that freeway and remember the last time I drove was with him and him blinking his lights because he was behind me to get me to pull over. So I pulled over thinking something was wrong and him running up with a Red Bull saying, "I think you're tired, drink this." Just like those memories of, "Thank you, Wyatt. Like, thanks for taking care of me." But driving that freeway, it's like you start hallucinating.
Yeah.
So there's just nothing.
Oh, there's a lot of nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's from Rollins to Laramie is actually, I believe, the most dangerous freeway or section of freeway in the United States.
100% understand why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, cross between the weather and just the boring. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, sounds like your mother's intuition is pretty spot on. Mm-hmm. Adjusting my mic here. What, when you got back and you're undoing everything or putting all of his stuff away, and I'm sure there's still some black holes in there, and I imagine when you get back, people are still like, "Hey, you're back. We still need to take care of you."
Yeah, I remember when we first pulled in with his stuff and I brought in just a bag of Wyatt's clothes and I carried into the house and our dog just went nuts. Just started barking, clawing at the bag, pulling clothes out. I mean, it was the weirdest thing. Our dog knew what was going on. So then it was just a lot of, I put everything away where it belonged. I put the clothes back on the dresser. I put the video games with the video games. I made his bed. I put his bedding on his bed. I made his room like he would be home tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it stayed that way for a while.
What was the kids like kind of returning to school and stuff? And you said Connor got in some fights and stuff, and I think that's pretty... I think that goes back to earlier, the group of boys are just jerks.
Yeah.
But your daughter, was she have any conflicts, or was she okay?
No, Jessica and Morgan both. I mean, Jessica silently struggled. I think she internalized a lot. And she's just the type that doesn't want to, she wants to help everybody else. She doesn't want to put any of her stuff on anybody else. She's still that way, Mm-hmm. So I think she silently struggled. Morgan also, same thing, but she was a little more vocal about her emotions and how she was feeling. But she was also younger. So there was just a lot of just holding each other, at home. And they went back to school. I don't even know. I think it was maybe a week. They went back to school. We had all of our family come in from the Idaho area, and they stayed with us for about 3 weeks to help plan the service and do all of that. I don't remember doing any arrangements other than writing his obituary, which I did. And I remember that taking a very long time to do that.
I mean, how do you put an entire life into a paragraph?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be so hard. So when the kids started going back to school, what was it like for you being kind of the mom, just being like, okay, my kids they've been here with me. I've been able to, whether I think you realize it or not, I'm sure, like, there you are. Okay, everybody's fine, right? I would imagine I would be a constant assessment. Okay, who's here? Where'd everybody go? Okay, we're all good, and then having them just kind of back into the world again.
Yeah. I don't know that I was in a place to even understand that was happening. I think part of it was return to normal daily life, because I haven't yet even accepted that this has happened. So no different than, his clothes are back in the dresser because he's going to be home tomorrow. Kids are back to school because they need to do their schoolwork. I don't know that I ever even really processed it enough. And I mean, I took 3 weeks off of work. That was it for this. And I remember looking forward to going back to work. As soon as the service was over, I wanted to go back to work, which also happened to be my 40th birthday.
Oh, man.
So I do remember all of my family being there, all friends being there, because they already were for the service. And I do remember them doing some kind of a birthday thing for me, but I feel like I was just a zombie kind of through it all.
I think that's probably a pretty good term, just being a zombie through that stuff. I'd imagine there's a lot of just your mind's going so many different directions that it's just almost seems broken.
Yeah.
So, and how long was the service? Or not like the service itself, but like from finding out to actually having the service?
I want to say his service was May 28th, and he died on May 16th.
It's not really that long.
Right. It was a couple weeks.
Yeah. It was here in town.
He was in Vancouver. Yeah.
Yeah. You said you were kind of excited to kind of go back to work, right? I'd imagine that's probably something to look forward to, of just the trying to find normalcy.
Yeah.
Once again. What was it like when you got there? You started getting into your day.
Well, my work had been very, very supportive. They had actually brought in a grief counselor to work with the staff, because I supervised a lot of staff. So they had already done some grief work with the staff about how to help the staff support me when I return. Upon my return, there was a grief counselor there to work with me on just like how to more effectively get back into the day. At that point, I remember, I'm good. Nope, I just need to work. I just need to get back to whatever's on my list. Like, where's my calendar? What's going on? My first day back, and then I remember I had to go do a suicide intervention with a youth. Day one.
Your first day back?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. They didn't pull you off. They're just like, and go.
Yeah.
What was that like?
I remember it feeling different. I've done 1,000 suicide interventions over the years with kids, based on statements that they make, when they're receiving services and stuff like that. I remember this one feeling different. Like, there was more. I didn't have the calmness I felt. Like, I've been trained and educated on how to ask these questions and how to assess risk in a very calm and educated way. I didn't feel like I had that understanding when I did that. And that's when I realized it's too soon. I shouldn't be here, because if I'm not up to par on my skill set for this job, I shouldn't be doing this. I could cause harm. So I immediately got a plan together to some of the things that I would normally be tasked to do. I just had to start making a list of assessing what I wasn't ready to do. And I had to just get a team together that could take some of these things on. If I was going to return, then I needed to do that for a short term or until I felt more capable and safe to do some of those things. And if I couldn't, I needed to take more leave. And my team worked really well. They're very supportive. We got everything like that covered in the future for quite some time. It was probably months before I ever had to engage in anything like that again.
Months seems still like a little too soon kind of time frame, but
it was pretty soon. I engaged in therapy right away. We got our whole family into a grief support group. Particularly, it was one that provided services for people that had lost people due to suicide, because that's just a different kind of death. It just sits differently. We had done that whole family group, so we had some support to help kind of with that grieving process and getting myself to a place to where it felt a little bit more emotionally capable to get back into that work. But I would say it's still to this day, we're 8.5 years later. And I have to really be intentional if I know I'm going into something like that. I have to pause. I have to get myself in a space. I have to get my thoughts of why out of my head, because that's the first thing that comes into my head. And I have to prepare. It's never going to be on the spot like it used to be. It's always going to have to be very intentional. Yeah. It's a part of my job. I have to do it. I just have to develop, keep on these strategies that I've developed to help do it effectively and safely.
Pretty stellar of your work to have the staff prepared before you got in. That statement really impressed me.
Yeah.
Actually, and then have somebody on standby for you.
Yeah.
It's like I said, that's pretty stellar and pretty impressive, I think. So you guys were all going to counseling.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel that it helped versus if you didn't?
I don't think it was helpful, to be 100% honest. And I am a counselor, so it's hard for me to say that the reality is it's not always helpful. But I think what was helpful, and our family actually talked about this at the time, because it got to the point, it was like a weekly thing. Every Wednesday night we would go to this group, then there was a split out, the parents went to this group, the kids would go to these different groups, and have different kinds of activities at each one, and I think for me it was helpful to talk and share and listen and but I'm kind of, with my profession, that interested me. That helped me figure out how I was going to do things. That wasn't the style of my family. It wasn't, I don't think they really wanted to do it. I think they did it because I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And then we would all go out to dinner afterwards. And there was one point when, the kids, my husband at the time was kind of complaining about it. And I'm just but we've made this a weekly thing. And we all are together and having dinner. He's like, how about we just go to dinner once a week? How about we just, all of us have a family dinner once a week? And I'm like, is that what it is? Was that really what was helpful to me? Is it was just with the kids at those ages, they're spread out all over the place. There's sports and friends and a million things going on. And, I think what it really came down to is that I had my family there, what was left of my family. I had them all there. So we finished out the group and, did all that. But I from there, I went into individual therapy. I was the only one that went into individual therapy after that.
And based off your earlier statement where you're you were getting something out of it because you felt like it interested you mm-hmm. and stuff. And then you continued. So you were getting something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that I was kind of hoping that would come out of this podcast would be if somebody is going through this too, that they kind of hear your story of making it through and mm-hmm. getting that hope, that I'm going to make it through,
mm-hmm.
And we'll still continue obviously going on and talking more about how you're coping and, but to me, it's really interesting to know that sometimes therapy actually 100% works
uh-huh.
and sometimes it 100% doesn't work.
Right.
And I think for me, again, going through my deal, I've been in therapy twice where, originally right after everything, it's like, you got to go. I didn't want to go.
Right.
I was just lip service.
Mm-hmm.
I'm smart enough to know what they want to hear, right? So you're just like, oh, everything's fine. Oh, no, I don't think about that anymore. We're good, blah, 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 blah. Right, and then you get out and you're like, oh, this sucks. I need to go back. But then when you figure out I need to go back, that's when things help.
Yeah.
Things happen, things heal, and things like that. So I wanted to say that because if somebody else is going through that right now and they are in therapy and they're like, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not working right now.
Right.
Take a break. Take a minute. Take a deep breath. Come back to it.
Well, and you made a really good point. It's so much of it has to do with, do you want it to work? And that was one of the things that you had mentioned in your podcast that you had done about that, is that there were tools. You didn't want the tools.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me when I listened to that. Wyatt had all the tools at his fingertips because of all the resources that I was connected to. When you're suicidal, it affects your thinking. 100% affects your thinking. Thoughts like that, you're not thinking that way. You're thinking of, I am nothing but a burden to other people. Why would I take these resources?
Right.
Why would I do that? I shouldn't be here. What? Why would I take these resources that other people could be using? I am not worth it. I truly believe that's a thought that seems to make sense to people who are experiencing suicidality. That's something I have never thought, but I don't struggle with those thoughts. Now, granted, there was many times I woke up after I lost Wyatt and thought, there is no way I want to live the rest of my life with this much pain. And that's the only thing that I can kind of relate to that might be similar to what somebody who is experiencing when they're suicidal. It's because I know what that pain felt like to wake up and instantly just literally feel like your heart's broken. And fuck, it's still real. I'm still here. And this pain is still here. And this hurts. And now I have to get up and live like this. That is the most similar feeling that I can imagine is comparable to what someone might feel like if they're suicidal. And I get it because I felt it. As a grieving mother, I felt that.
You're pretty spot on there. You have that, you just have that horrible, empty feeling inside all the time. You just want it to go away and you don't know how to make it, It's one of those things, like you said, you wake up in the morning and it's there. Mm-hmm. All right, got to get out of bed. Game face on. Let's go, everybody. But it's still there. Yeah. You might get in a good mood and you're driving down the road and a particular song comes on, or the breeze blows on your face exactly a particular way and it takes you to a memory or something, Mm-hmm. And there's always something that is just reminds you, and it just puts you right back there. I mean, you can be 100 miles an hour, awesome, happy, to negative 1,000,000 in 2 blinks of an eye. What did I get here so fast again? Yeah. It's a horrible feeling. And you kind of said something about, that video I did. I know a lot of people that listen to it, they all know, and here we go again. But it's called My Inner Monologue, and it was the worst 2 weeks of my life putting that video together, and it was, being vulnerable and being open and being so honest about something that nobody ever knew about me. Not even my parents, right? So after that video came out, you get the phone calls from the parents. And the day after that video came out, there was so much support coming out. And I know a lot of you have heard this before, but I think there's a lot of people maybe listening to it right now that have not heard this. But when that video came out, my phone, my direct messages, just everything was going crazy. I had 2 dudes call me, 2 grown men crying about it. And I wasn't prepared for that kind of reaction. And I actually went on my Instagram story. You try to hold it together all day, and be strong. And you're getting these, I had this one message from this one particular person. It started in my direct messages and then continued flawlessly and seamlessly into my text messages, into the video comments, into an Instagram comment, back to my text message. And it was, I had to piece it all together to find out what this person was saying and get it in. But one of the reach outs that day was you, that you came in, and I actually saved that. And this is actually one of the most profound messages that I've probably got. I got to put my glasses on. I'm getting to that age. But this is actually one of the messages that I got that was like, I can't even put it into words how it made me feel. It was definitely something. It was probably, honestly, the most powerful message I've ever gotten in my entire life. And it was you, and I'm going to read this, and I'll kind of skip the last couple sentences here, but it says, "Thank you for the video. I sobbed. After losing my 19-year-old son to suicide 7 years ago, was probably the first time I got an understanding of what he was thinking and feeling. I may not be able to relate to the battle itself, but the loss of him is what made me stop riding. Never ride when you are Never ride when you are not emotionally stable, is what they said in class. After losing him, I knew I would never be stable again, so I sold my bikes." Then I put some little marks in here. So, because I asked you to share, if I can share this, so I made it anonymous, so I put some stuff out. So I sold my bikes, bought my bike I have now last year, and said, it's time. So grateful, because it has led me to so much more healing. It's probably one thing that we didn't really talk about earlier, is that you do ride.
I do. And I ride because of Wyatt.
Yeah.
And I stopped riding because of Wyatt.
That wind therapy is legit.
Yeah.
It's very real. I think that statement is, like I said, that was one of the most powerful things I've ever gotten in my life. And that really kind of threw me over the edge of, I need to shut my phone off for the day. It was in the evening, and I had to shut my phone down. And I emotionally hit the wall.
Yeah.
Of that. I think you are a very brave woman, and I want to move forward kind of where we just left off, of getting in and finding some things in therapy that works. But what are other things? Like, I guess we just talked a little bit about motorcycles, but what are some of the other things that really kind of help you? Because I'm sure it's still day to day.
Always, yeah.
Is there that one thing where you're like for me, it's 1,000,000,000% motorcycles. Something's going on. You throw me on my motorcycle, and next thing I know I'm in the woods. I'm like, all right, we good.
Yeah.
Right. So is there anything like that for you that is a proven
I mean, I think it's changed over the years. It's been different things at different times. Ultimately, for me, I'm a person of connection. A big part of my healing was connecting with other people, and on a deep level, not a superficial level. I did end up losing quite a few friends. I lost a marriage after that, for good reason. Like, I was an empty shell of a human for a long time. I could not have ever have asked for my husband to have to take that on, when undoubtedly he had his own struggles with it. But waking up, seeing me every day, hurting the way that I was, I didn't want that for him. So that ended our marriage. Lost friends. I used to be a very social person. Want to go out all the time, have fun. Didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to stay home. I wanted to stay close to the people that were important to me. If I was going to have conversation, I wanted it to be meaningful conversation. So connection was a huge piece of my healing. Ironically, I mentioned I did a paint night for the first night, the same night that Wyatt died. When my friends were there from Idaho for his service, there was one night that, because it had been a few weeks had gone by, and they're like, let's go do paint. Let's go paint. Let's go do something. You need to get out of the house. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I was painting the night Wyatt died, and I was just painting. Like, why did I do that? And meanwhile, my son was dead, and I was painting. Like, how horrible of me was my thought process, right? But they were insistent, we're going to go do this. So I actually went and we did that painting, and it was a 2-hour process. And it was the first time in 2 hours my brain shut off. It was the first, I had 2 hours it felt like an effective nap where I felt rested. Afterwards, I felt a relief of that aching pain for 2 hours. So that creativity, I ended up doing those paint things every week. I have over 100 of them.
Wow.
Because that was my coping. Every week, by myself or with a friend, either way, didn't matter. I would go paint for 2 hours. And that was my therapy, along with my individual therapy that did work for me, that was helpful. Treating, the PTSD and like the grief and the loss and all of that stuff. I do believe it was helpful for me. I wanted the help, and I felt like I needed the help, and it was important for me to get myself in a place to where I could be effective again. And I really, really wanted that. So that's why that worked. It's because I wanted it. Other than that, I mean, I had the art, and then, like I said, I quit writing. We were a family of dirt bikes. There was a situation where we inherited a little bit of money, and the whole family decided they wanted dirt bikes. So they all got dirt bikes. I didn't want one. I'm not a rider. I don't need it. And so I would go with all them, and they would all ride. And Wyatt was the one that said, Mom, you should ride this. He had a little 100. Yeah. I'm like, no, it's too scary. I'm not good at this. I don't know. And he's like, just do it. I'm like, oh, okay. So he convinced me to do it, and I rode.
Hook, line, and sinker.
And within a month, they all had red and white bikes, and I had a blue and white bike.
Oh, there you go.
I had my dual sport, and That was the first bike I ever had. And then that was so helpful for me prior to all of that, and I had so much fun with it. It was so sad for me to stop writing. So sad. Because there were many times when I felt like this is what I need to do this, but I can't. Because I'm not emotionally stable, and that's dangerous. I could hurt myself or somebody else. I have no business being on 2 wheels because I am damaged. And I am not capable of making safe choices and being out there, and with the level of responsibility that I believe comes with anybody on 2 wheels. It's more responsibility than anybody else, I believe.
So you were calling yourself damaged?
Damaged, 100% broken, damaged, ruined.
Man, that's powerful stuff.
Yeah. I wasn't worthy of being a wife. I pushed my husband away. Ultimately was the one that said, we need to be done here. And it was because I could not handle or accept that he was going to be stuck with me like this. Because why would I want that for anybody that I loved?
Right.
And I thought this was just going to be the way that I was. And I self-sabotaged. I did all the things, But ultimately it was connection that would bring me back. My circle's small, but it's mighty. And between the connection and then over the years developing gratitude was helpful. Really having a deep understanding that you are not guaranteed anything at any moment in time. The person you love the most could be gone. So how are you going to choose to spend your time? Or is it going to be by superficial conversations? Or is it going to be intentional? When you're frustrated with somebody and you want to say something crappy, what if that's the last thing that you say? Those are things that go through my head all the time because every parent's greatest fear is my reality. Every parent's greatest fear is losing a child. Without a doubt, I've never encountered any parent that has said anything otherwise. Yet that is the absolute greatest fear. And that's my reality. So if most people's greatest fear that for most people don't have to bury their children, it does happen. There's a lot of people out there that have lost children, but it's not the majority of parents. It's my reality. And so I don't ever want to be in a position to where I have regret over not telling people how I feel about them or saying things that are hurtful that I can't take back and may not get a chance to take back. I don't want that in my life. And losing Wyatt changed that for me. Those were not things about me that existed before. I've never been a mean person, but if I was frustrated, I would tell you and I'd let you know. And it wasn't always the nicest thing, Yeah. I've just learned over the years with loss, it's not worth it. Because living with the guilt that you can live with for saying something that you cannot take back is pain. Absolute pain that I would not want to have to go through. So coping for me was connection. It was gratitude. It was art. And then, up until 3 years ago, when I got another bike, then it became my bike.
What did it feel like the first time you got back on a bike and just took off?
Scary.
Yeah.
I think I still had that belief. My partner bought that bike for me and he said, it's time for you to ride. Get on. You need it. And I was absolutely no, I do not like this. I should not do this. This is bad. I'm still broken. I'm still not right. And he pushed, and I'm so thankful he did because that changed everything. The first time I got on that bike and brand new bike, it's a used bike, but close enough to brand new.
Yeah.
And I had never ridden that kind of bike before. And it was literally, I went from a dual sport to a street bike with a lot of years in between.
Mm-hmm.
And I got on that thing and it was like I had never been off. I didn't skip a beat. It was exactly what I remembered, only I had to convince myself, now remember, don't go off onto the trails. You stay on the road. This is a street bike.
Now you say street bike. Isn't it more of a cruiser?
Yeah.
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 So it's kind of the Harley-esque style.
Yeah. It's yes.
Yeah.
You do not go on the gravel roads.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some people are thinking street bike. They're thinking crotch rockets.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah.
No. So yeah, it was very familiar. It was lovely. And then I couldn't get off of it. And I was on that thing. That was the summer I met you, I believe.
Probably.
Yeah, that was my first summer on that bike 2 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think while you were riding, you said you can't get off that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Was that when you were finding the actual, this is like a therapy session for me? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. The wind, the smells, forgetting how much enjoyment I would get, riding through areas and like you can smell when someone's doing their laundry or they just mowed their grass or there's someone barbecuing over there, and just like it keeps you so grounded for me. It keeps me connected to the here and the now. It keeps my mind from wandering off into the future or the past. You got to be attentive. You got to be aware. Mm-hmm. It almost forces that sense of mindfulness, I believe, if you're an intentional rider.
Yeah.
So that was incredibly helpful. And those are all strategies used in therapy, right? In like individual therapy, those are all strategies and interventions. And you can do those same strategies in different activities. You don't necessarily have to sit one-on-one with a therapist. You can learn the value of what it is that you're doing, and then you can continue that. And that's really, I think, how people heal, is you do have to learn the skills, and it takes some time to learn those skills. But then the idea is that you incorporate those into your everyday life, and that you recognize when you're not doing so well, and you remember, okay, when was the last time that I did something that kept me grounded, that kept me present in the moment? Okay, I need to do that.
Yeah. I think the motorcycle thing is such a unique tool, if you will. I think people who have never ridden, how many people go, you're going to kill yourself on that and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, you just don't get it.
Yeah, I hear that from my mom all the time.
Yeah, you don't get it. There are times I just get on that thing and it's just like, there's been times where I have like an itinerary. So I'm like, I pack up all my camera gear, and I'm like, okay, this video I want to do here. I want to do A, B, and C. I need to make sure I get the shot. I want to make sure I got tripod so I can get the flybys, and I get all this stuff in my head. And I can't tell you how many times I set out to go out and just shoot a video. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, I just need to ride today.
Yeah.
It's just for me, our riding style is a little bit different. We share the road together, but the gravel travel for me, getting out on gravel roads, getting into the woods. I like not realizing when I go by this imaginary line of the woods to the wilderness.
Yeah.
And you're out there. There's something about, like you said, the smells, the sudden slight temperature changes on a hot day. You get down by a creek and you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. You ride down into a valley and all of a sudden you feel that like dense fog and this sudden temperature change, which is just, and it makes you wonder like how and why did that happen? And then also like, if I'm in a car, I don't feel this.
Right. You just driving down the road. But I think the motorcycles is because you said you have to be attentive. Mm-hmm. You have to be hyper vigilant, but at the same time, my mind wanders, like I'm being very aware of what's going around, but also it's kind of like, yeah, this sucks right now. What am I going to do about this kind of conversation in my head? Or I think sometimes there's obviously an adrenaline. I'm an adrenaline junkie, and I am the first one to admit that. There's something about, for me, it's just flying down a gravel road, getting sideways around corners, and just riding like a hooligan sometimes where everything kind of falls into place for me. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is, but sometimes I get some of my best rides are when I don't care. I just want to ride, and I'm going to ride hard.
Yeah.
And something throughout that ride will spike my adrenaline, and I, for whatever reason, somewhere around that time when it's coming down or it's going up or whatever, I'm like, oh, I just figured it out. Or if it's nothing to figure out, if it's just you're trying to ride away from a feeling, you find that inner peace.
Yeah.
You find the calm. You find the happiness again, right? Yeah. You rode away from your feelings, essentially. It's hard to describe unless you've been there. And it's like, I've sat around at Get Lost, Find Yourself, and I've, this really awesome motorcycle event up in Vancouver Island, and a lot of us have the exact same feeling, the exact same story, and it's just like, I know what you're feeling out there. I got it too.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. That's what started this whole thing, this podcast and everything. It was just motorcycles. And it's just morphed into more. So, but I'm glad you found healing on the two wheels.
Yeah.
Especially, I really like the term, like, I couldn't get off.
Yeah.
I think that's such a powerful part. So, what other things did you find that were helpful?
Yeah, I mean, really, just it's been an ongoing individual therapeutic work, because grief is so messy. They talk about the stages of grief, and like people think that those actually happen in order. They don't. It's a jumbled up mess, and you never know what you're going to get on any given day. So the individual therapy for me really was helpful because it helped me understand, and it helped me gain awareness of myself. And that's been such a critical thing in my grieving process, is that self-awareness. And I think it's because I go back to what my son said 2 days after Wyatt died about, now is he losing his mom too? So I want that self-awareness because I don't ever want that to be the case. So yeah, that connection with people. The music is another one for me. There's just sometimes, and sometimes I'll incorporate music into writing. Sometimes I won't. It kind of depends on my mood and, if I'm needing that little bit of extra distraction, or am I needing the grounding? If I'm needing the grounding, it's silent. I need to be aware. I need to hear things. I need to be focused on all of my senses and not have the distraction of music. But there's sometimes, especially after kind of a crappy day at work or something like that, when I need to figure out what's my genre that I need right now and put it on and go, so it may not be the same from day to day.
Right.
And then just staying close to the people that are really important to me, spending time having conversations that are meaningful, feeling like I'm doing something good each day, with my work. I mean, I'm in the field of helping others, so there's that, but sometimes it needs to be a little bit more than that. It's like, what is something that I've done positive for myself or for my family, and focus on maybe it's some organization. That has helped me many days of just kind of organizing my life, finding something to put some order to. I've never been a person that, requires everything to be 100% perfect, but I've found in my grieving process that helps. Cleanliness, organization, it does do something to bring a little bit of sense of control when you sometimes feel out of control. So yeah, it changes, but I think the themes are all the same. Really coming down to connection is by far what heals, I believe, for me.
So it's been, you say 8.5 years?
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say 8.5 years past this to maybe another mother or a father who just found out that their child, did the unthinkable?
Oh, just hold on. And don't expect anything else other than just holding on, even if it's by your fingertips. That you'll never get through it. Like, you'll never get over it. But it's a process like anything else. You're going to have your ups and your downs. Just like anybody who completes suicide. They had their ups and downs. And the downs took over. The downs led to the action that led to their death. Hold on to whatever ounce of hope you have. And rebuild. You have to rebuild. And it doesn't mean that you forget what you had. It's a different way of living. People used to use the term, oh, we just have to get used to the new normal. I freaking hate that. Like, there's nothing normal about grieving. Absolutely nothing normal about it, especially grieving a child. Parents should not have to bury their children. And I hate that term. I hate that, and I hate the term, everything happens for a reason. No, the fuck it doesn't. There's absolutely no reason for anyone to be in a position to take their life. We have resources available, but there's so much stigma around mental health. And I would offer that as guidance for people going through that too, from parents grieving, is that talk about it. Don't keep it a secret. Don't be shy about the way in which your child died because you're afraid of what people might think of you. All we're doing is contributing to the stigma that's leading people to not talk about it when we do that. We've got to learn to be vulnerable.
I don't even know what to say. Yeah. It's such a yeah, I'm kind of lost for words at the moment. My mind is like in 15 different directions, you know. When I'm trying to, like, oh my God, what if, and then I would say to you, like, you're just making it through every day is inspirational, and that I think there's hope in it that people can actually make it through. I think at the end of the day that you said it just doesn't go away.
Right.
It's something you're living with every single day, you know. And I think that is a scary term for somebody who might just be going through this. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I mean, time and distance doesn't fix what I'm feeling right now.
It changes it. Time changes it. It morphs it, if that makes sense. Like, it's a different kind of pain today than it was 8 years ago. You know? I would say, you know, it's not disabling anymore. Like, I'm not finding situations to where I cannot function. I definitely have my bad days, but you got to figure out what works for you to get through those bad days, and you got to hold on to those. And it takes a while to figure out what's going to work for you, and those things are going to change, you know, just like it did for me. Going from art to writing, like, that's kind of a shift.
Yeah.
But it worked. It worked for me. It was, and I think I think it's healthy to have multiple options, you know? If my bike breaks down and I can't fix it right away, I better have something else I can, like, hold on to.
Just take Luke's.
Yeah. That thing's way too big.
I think we're going to start wrapping some things up here. I think, like I've said before, I feel like your story is very impactful and important and powerful and encouraging and heartbreaking all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
just like a month and a half ago now, I guess, I threw this moto meetup, the end of the summer moto meetup, and you and Luke came, and which I thought was really cool. One of the only guys that showed up on our Harley won the Harley stuff. I was like, all right, that's fitting. But that was really a fundraiser for Heads Up Guys.
Yep.
So Heads Up Guys, if you don't know, is a mental health resource that is really dedicated to men's mental health and kind of trying to break that stigma of dudes don't talk about it, bro.
Right.
You know, and that's been something that myself, Critter Moto, have I've been trying to kind of break, and really Chris, aka Critter, he's really at the forefront of this, in my opinion. The Get Lost, Find Yourself moto moto camp out that he does. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
It's very intimate. It's a beautiful, weekend away, ride up there. Everybody rides all day, get together around the camp, and everybody is there to allow themselves to be open.
Yeah.
And for those who are not ready to talk about their struggles or what they've been through or talk about their stories, it's a nice place to see that others are. Mm-hmm. What I'm getting at is this is also something that as a society we got to get able to talk about the mental health aspect of it. We got to be able to talk about it. We got to be able to, how do we find our kids like, hey, it's okay to come to me and talk to me about literally anything. If you're having these thoughts of, hey, I want to commit suicide or I'm super depressed or A, B, and C, we need to it's okay to talk to me about that.
Yeah.
And as parents, we have to learn how to hear that, not freak out, and have as you say, this meaningful conversation back and forth of one another. I've said before, well, I skipped over what I was getting to with the Moto Meetup part. But I remember I was getting ready to kind of hand out these raffle prizes and stuff, and I was given this little speech, and I, cancer over here, I tear up a lot, when I'm talking about this stuff because I'm so passionate about it, and I don't want people to go through what I went through, and I don't want them to feel what I felt.
Yeah.
And so it's very passionate for me. And I remember being kind of teared up and stuff and looking around the room as I'm kind of talking and stuff. And I looked over and I saw you over there, and I was like, my initial reaction was like, oh, bring her up here and talk. Then the reality of that, yeah, dude, that's a stupid idea. Yeah. No. But that was the time I was like, I really want to have her on, because I think, like I said, a part of doing this is I want to show, first of all, I wanted your story to come out, right? I think it's so important, as heartbreaking and as devastating as it is. And I hate that you have to go through this every day. But I wanted to bring your story because I didn't know this about you until you sent that message, right? So the Angie that I saw was always happy-go-lucky, haha, laughing, let's go ride motorcycle stuff.
Yeah.
Right? You and I, we don't really know each other that well, right? So we have these two sides, right? Mm-hmm. But that would be the one that I always saw.
Yeah.
And then hearing more about your story and seeing how, essentially surviving this. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so important. And I wanted to bring a message of just kind of hope and survival through this episode.
Yeah.
And I sometimes when we get into it, you know, you might have kind of an agenda and things bounce around because it's a natural long form conversation, right? It's just not like, hey, I've got bullet points and we're going to hit these bullet points and then we're going to be done.
Yeah.
I hate that. So with that being said, you know, I think the message of the hope and survival, what do you have to say to extend what I'm talking about right there? Because really, some of our worst situations and worst stories will help somebody else out through theirs. You know, I know that my story has actually helped some people. You know, I know that Critter and his event and stuff has actually literally helped people and saved lives.
Yeah.
Right. So if somebody, you know, this is what, October 11th, 24, and whatever day, year, or whatever, somebody finds this and is connecting and resonating with this because of their situation, how would you extend what I'm saying here with the hope, the survival, the day-to-day?
I think, you know, one of the things I've heard over the years over and over is, oh, you're so strong. How have you gotten through this? You're so strong. And I've always questioned that a little bit. Like, to me, surviving is not strength. Strength is living. Living is different than surviving. There's going to be days when you're just surviving. Don't get me wrong. When that's the best you can do, and that's fantastic if that's the best you can do, is just survive. But the goal is living. I don't believe for a minute that Wyatt intended for his families and friends to suffer with his loss. I don't believe that. I believe he wants us to live in his honor. So for anybody struggling with mental health, because I believe it's the same, right? Some days you're surviving and some days you live. Some days you have those great days, those moments when you're just thankful and grateful for everything that's going right now. And then those days that you're just surviving. But learning how to live in the midst of surviving is really what it's all about. And those are the things that you need to like find that bring you life. And when I say life, I don't mean that everything's happy, but you're present. You're experiencing things. Your mind is going in directions about how things could be, what you want things to be, what kind of changes you want to make because you want something better, you know, and then working towards those things. That's living. And to me, that's where the strength comes in. So I think that's what I would want to emphasize with anybody, like whether they're struggling with mental health or whether they're dealing with the grieving because they have lost somebody, is try to live. And it seems impossible on a lot of days, but it is possible. You just have to find whatever connects you to that. And for some, for me, that was connection with people. For other people, it's not, you know, and it's okay. Everyone has different ways of grieving.
I think that's pretty profound little ending segue right there. What do you suggest for people? Because we're encouraging people to, you know, seek out.
Yeah.
You know, to talk about it, to find a therapy, to find some way for them to live, right? So is there any like method, you know, that you would tell somebody to try? I mean, yeah, it's so individual based, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is even with therapy, okay, let's just talk about therapy for a minute. Some people, it takes a lot for them to work up to like make a call to like get a therapist and like go through the process and talk about their whole life trauma and all of the things and get whatever diagnosis might be out there and get whatever recommendations for medication somebody might be telling them to take. It takes a lot for a lot of people to reach out to get to that point. And then sometimes therapists just aren't a good fit for somebody. And so I think for a lot of people, you're not always going to get the perfect fit therapist the first time. And it's okay to say, this doesn't feel like it's working. Let me try somebody different. A lot of people don't give that a chance. It's just go to therapy. Oh, didn't help. Never going back. So I definitely would encourage people, if you do try something and it doesn't work, don't just stop there. Like there's other avenues that you can go. I mean, there's so many resources for like crisis lines and things like that. But honestly, everything is going to work or not work for different people. Know the resources that are out there, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean because you're unfixable. It's just you haven't found the right tool yet for you. There is something out there for everybody to try to get themselves in a better, healthier place. But it's not going to be the same for every person.
Yeah. So before we go, I'm going to put you on the spot again.
Okay.
So I'm kind of smiling right now. So think back to some of your happy times with Wyatt. Mm-hmm. So you told us the pie in the face story. So what's one more story that kind of makes you giggle or makes you laugh or makes your heart warm about him that comes to mind?
There's so many.
Yeah.
There's so many. Him and I had shared such a interest in music together. Thinking of our road trip, even to Wyoming, and obviously that being one of the last big memories I have, but how much conversation we had over songs, and like, have you really listened to this one? And like, what do you think this is really about? Like, Wyatt was someone that liked those deep conversation. And I think that has, understanding the really great things about him helped me figure out what I need to do to grieve. And it's hold on to those precious parts. The humor, his sense of humor. I mean, the jokes and the pranks that he would do, and just would think it's the funniest thing in the world. Humor is really important to me now. Like, being able to laugh at yourself, at others, is really, really important. Yeah, he was quite the prankster. Let's not forget about the time where he, ran across the football field at halftime in his boxer shorts.
Oh.
With a group of friends. Yeah, let's not forget that. I mean, it was just nonstop. It was just, he liked to make people laugh. And going back to what we had mentioned previously, that's a great distraction from what's really going on. Mm-hmm. And if you can make other people laugh and enjoy their time, even at your own expense, well, at least they're not seeing what I'm really feeling.
Right.
And just, I really want to emphasize the statistics of completed suicides, men versus women.
Yeah.
There's a reason it is so incredibly off balance.
Mm-hmm. 4 times more for men to commit suicide than women.
Right.
Yep. I think I'll have to fact check this, but I believe it's something like 86% are men.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That is accurate with the last statistics I saw.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. And we all have a responsibility to change society to where there's an emphasis on this. And we are not making our society be a way in which men feel that they are wrong for feeling these things, and that their job is to be strong, a provider at all times, to never crack, and to just be the rock that everyone is depending on. That is a very dangerous position to be in. Women don't have those expectations.
Right.
We can break down any time and we get validated for that. Men don't. And that is why those rates are so incredibly different, I believe.
Oh, I believe that too, 100%. Men don't cry. And, push it down, dude. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the worst things, and I think probably in my younger years too, I've probably been guilty of that. You're fine, dude. Whatever. Let's go shoot hoops. So, Angie, I'm very grateful that you came on today. I know this is a difficult conversation to have. It was weird today leading up to this. For the first time, I think I was about to have this conversation. Where usually podcasts are coming on, I'm like, yeah, this will be great. I was like, yeah, it's going to be great, but oh boy. And I know it was difficult for you to come in and talk about it. And I hope this is encouraging you to maybe speak out more about it. We're doing the second annual Motorcycles and Pancakes Moto meetup next year. And, if you wanted to say something, then, it's a year away, so we got some time to figure it out. But you always have a voice here. If you want to come back on, you have an open invitation anytime. Yeah, I'm going to put some resources down in the show notes for people, which generally are in all of my videos and podcasts. And there's some sort of a resource down in the bottom for Heads Up Guys, BetterHelp, and some phone numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll add probably one or two more in there. You're not really, you have social medias. Mm-hmm. Do you want to pimp those out?
Sure. What's
your Instagram there?
I think it's just my name with some underscores.
There you go.
Nothing fancy.
Yeah, I'll put that down in the show notes as well. If you want to go follow her and give her some messages and say hello. But yeah, I'm just agreeing to come on here. Was a big thing for me, and I hope maybe for you too to come on and just.
It was. I was nervous. I was super nervous about it. I haven't done exactly something like this before, but as I thought about it, as you had asked me about it, I thought this is the next step for me. Like, anybody that's close to me has heard all of this.
Yeah.
But not so much publicly. And I do believe this is part of healing, is getting to the point to where, you're only having minimal breakdown when you tell the story.
Yeah.
But, we've done fundraisers. We've been a part of, suicide prevention walks and things like that to raise funds for mental health, education, and support in the school systems. We've been involved in a lot of things over the years, because I do believe action matters.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing just to say how you feel. It's another thing to actually put action and do something about how you feel about something. But this is a step. Being open and transparent and vulnerable about experiences is one step, but action is really important to me.
I think it's important as well. So I guess with that, again, thank you so much for coming on. And until the next time, friends. you.